And with me today from United is their board secretary, Maggie Blackwell. Maggie, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. And today I'm going to talk about governing documents. The committee this time is talking about a canvassing policy. Now, this is a new law that was passed and is effective January this year, so we have to follow it. Prior canvassing rules have been under the Recreation Department. And if you wanted to do it, canvassing means something like you want to talk to people, stop them one-on-one on the street to talk, or you want to approach someone, or you want to put something at their manor.
Okay.
And the prior rules are still in effect, but we have to modify them slightly.
Okay.
The prior rules allowed for laundry rooms, for example. A candidate could put up a half a page size, one half. In fact, this is not only for candidates, this is for anyone who puts up something in the laundry room. That's any church or any committee or any board or anything. It has to be half a page. It has to have the name of the sponsor or the person who's putting the notice up. And of course, it has to tell the information it wants. You can only have one of those for 1 month up in a laundry room, each laundry room. Now, in the past, some candidates have gone wild and crazy, and they've done full-page things, and they've stuck them over other people's material, and some people have removed other people's material. That's not right. And so that's a violation of our policy. But now with the new law, there is more that you can do. You could always put a flyer out, one flyer per candidate per year, one flyer out at each person's door. And then you had to slip it under the patio door there, or you put it at the threshold.
Right.
And maybe you have to, if it's windy, you have to tuck it under the corner of the mat out there. You can never put such a thing inside the mailbox.
Right.
Because that's a federal offense. You can't do that. You can't leave things in people's mailboxes or take anything out of any mailbox. So you can't do that. But now, because more people are interested, I guess they got to the legislature and they decided they must allow people to express their views in the community. So you can hold maybe meetings here and meetings there inside the community to express your opinions.
Let me clarify. Are you talking about residents, or are you talking about people outside the community? Let's say you mentioned a candidate running for the Orange County Supervisor Office. You have to let one of their campaigners in and drop off things.
Well, this is for you have to allow that.
Okay.
But you have to have things, now according to the rules, you have to allow people to approach and knock at the door unless you have a no solicitation sign on there or a do not disturb. They can knock at your door. This is for outside people or for inside, because we have elections coming up, of course, again. But they can stand outside the clubhouses and interact with you. They're not supposed to chase you down. They're not supposed to harass you, and so on. We have had some directors in the past who were handing out a voting list suggestion or whatever, who kind of chased people down and followed them. You know how it is, chasing and yelling in your ear, and people were highly offended. That is still not allowed. You cannot harass people. But you can benignly stand there and hand out a flyer of some kind, but that also has to have the name of the sponsor and the name of the candidate or the issue they want. You can't just come in and start handing things out. You cannot leave them in the clubhouse anywhere. You can't just throw them on the table of every meeting that's in the clubhouse and run out the door. So you have to hand it to people, and you have to not harass people. and it should be only once for us so far, we can regulate this. We can regulate the knocking on the doors and so on, because our residents don't like the disturbance. A lot of them are not well, and they worry about it with the knocking on the door. So according to the law, the person can opt out, but VMS, or rather GRF, was considering, well, what kind of official sign could we make? Well, they really don't need an official sign to say, do not disturb. That should be everyone's right, to put out a do not disturb sign. Because there are people who are not well, there are people who don't like it. Some people don't, you can't say just Republicans only or Democrats only. You just can't do that. It'd be a furor in the community. So each resident should have the right. We just have to regulate where. I would say within a foot of the door and maybe waist high or above, so that the person who's walking in the gate can actually say. Now, you didn't used to be able to walk into a closed gate. Under the new rules, I don't know. But in past, when we've delivered flyers, if the gate was closed, not locked, if the gate was closed, you did not enter that part.
Okay.
So what the new rules are about that, I don't know. But
Okay, so the people who come in from outside the community, candidate, do they need to check in first, and then are you saying, well, they must be allowed to come into the community?
yeah, they will have to be allowed to come into the community, but they have to check in first.
Okay, all right.
Everything that goes out and around should be explained to our security so they know what's
Okay.
going on, and to the village, because we want. The signs must be honored. They were talking about, well, the resident can only have a sign that is official. It can only be an inch this wide, and it must have our logo on it. And really, the resident doesn't need anything like that. If the resident does not want someone approaching their door, they can do the same thing that anyone outside can
Okay.
do, which is put up a little sign. They say 3 by 5, and that's fine. Anything smaller than that. You can buy no solicitation
Right.
and do not disturb signs, just a little one, and attach it somewhere near your door. They'll make up a rule for that. But do not disturb, you can even put leave no flyers on there. So it's your right to be disturbed or not.
Okay.
But they do have a right to hold meetings and to put out information in the community. And they were thinking of it from the candidates'
Yeah.
right to free speech. But the candidate's right to free speech doesn't override somebody else's right to
Okay.
privacy or to not be disturbed.
Okay.
So it's a fine line, and I'm sure there'll be uproars because a lot of people don't want their community areas taken over by
Right.
somebody from the other party or whatever. You know, it's you have to balance, we
Right.
have to weigh, and we do have to regulate. We'll have to say you can canvas at the clubhouses and doors only like 9 to 4 or 9
Okay.
to 5 or something like that. And the size and content
Okay.
of things must be checked. Now, those are all under recreation currently, and I'm sure they will be soon also, but the mutuals have the housing. So what goes on in the clubhouses and things will be different from what the mutuals have.
Okay. All right.
So that's right. The other issue we're going to talk about today is a new caregiver policy. The state has 51.3 is the state law for California that allows senior communities, and it's very express on who can live here. It's 51.3 is to allow accessible housing for senior citizens. And so they say a qualified permanent resident means a person who meets both of the following requirements. You're residing with the senior citizen, or you are a spouse of the senior citizen, or a qualifying resident or senior citizen, and then the senior citizen passes, then you can stay for a certain amount of time. A qualified permanent resident can be also a person who is a child or grandchild of a senior citizen who needs to live with a senior citizen or qualified permanent resident. That means somebody who is a child who is disabled and needs the parents' care throughout their life. That person may come. Otherwise, they need everyone who lives in this community needs our authorization of the board.
Okay.
And they have to fall into certain categories. We have the age requirement. This is specific, 55 years or older in a senior city housing development. Otherwise, you could be a spouse or a domestic partner within this section 297 of the Family Code. That's a cohabitant.
Okay.
That is spouse or domestic partners. That's not anybody. A permitted health care resident, as the law stands now, means a person hired to provide live-in long-term or terminal health care to a qualifying resident. It can be also a family member of the qualifying resident, and this is true as the law exists right now. The care provided by a permanent health care resident must be substantial in nature and provide either assistance with necessary daily activities or medical treatment or both. So this is what the law says: substantial and necessary daily activities or medical treatment or both. Well, we have people in the community who need caregivers, but they don't. Some people need caregivers, medical caregivers, because they need medicines and they need therapy and things like that. But there are two types of activities for daily living. The one that falls under the medical exception for allowing a resident, a live-in person here, is if I call them a client because basically that's what the resident would be, the client. If the client needs personal hygiene help, continence management help, dressing or feeding, emulating, or toileting help, then they can have a residential caregiver. That's basically under 51.3. But a lot of our people are elderly and not that disabled, but they need companionship and support, transportation and shopping. They need someone to prepare their meals and manage their household, because otherwise things get lost and who knows what happens there. Managing medications and finances, and communicating with others, because they're not good on the phone. They can't remember how to dial the phone. They can't. Of course, one doesn't have to dial anymore. I guess you can just. But so we are working on a caregiver policy that opens it up a little bit, but doesn't throw it open, because we can't just have the children of a senior citizen living here saying they're caregivers and then going to the pool or going to the clubhouse or doing whatever, and just as residents, or we lose our 51.3 status as a senior community. So we have to say that they have to be with the client most of the time. I mean, you can't say, I'm a caregiver, and here you are off here, and the client is out in the golf course. That's not a need in either direction. So you have to show that you have a need. You don't have to get the doctor's approval anymore, because the theory is, but I don't believe it, that a doctor will sign anybody's application out of fear of being sued. Well, if we allow anyone in out of fear of being sued, if they need a caregiver, then what is our protection? We have
Right.
no right. So we have to require certain things. So we're going to consider this policy where a private caregiver can come in for the companionship, mental support, transportation, preparing meals, that kind of thing. And they have to register with us. They have to have the caregiver permit from the state. They do not have to have the medical requirement of the doctor's okay. The resident doesn't have to pay for your services because it can be a family member. Your room and board, of course, your room there would be your service
Right.
payments for many people. But we have to have a handle on who is living in the community. And so we are having them register here, and they will have to
Okay.
have an ID card, and they have to re-register every year, and we check. And if there are complaints, they cannot be in one of the facilities without the presence of their
Okay.
client.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Thank you for the update. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, thank
All
you
right.
very much.